Acura dares to drive beyond standard. A torque-vectoring super-handling all-wheel drive system? Standard in the Acura RDX. Panoramic moonroof and premium 3-row seating? Standard in the Acura MDX. Sound that surrounds you? An 18-speaker Bang & Olufsen premium sound system comes standard in the all-electric ZDX, the Acura RDX, ZDX, and MDX, where precision meets craftsmanship. Visit Acura.com to learn more.
This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Now from the Sunbury Motors studio, here's Steve Jones.
This opening half hour brought to you by good friends at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, the best in new inventory, great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee, and a terrific service department that takes care of everything from quick lane to inspections, routine, difficult. They handle it all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. It is a great way to open any week, and that is to talk to the incomparable Phil Steele. Phil, welcome back. So great to hear you again.
Hey, Steve. Always good to hear your voice. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for asking. Let's get to the Big Ten right away out of the gate. You've been able to put out your rankings as to what you think, where you think people are going to end up finishing in this thing. So you've got Ohio State in the one spot. Why do you have Ohio State in the one spot?
Actually, Steve, I've got some team that you might be familiar with in the number one spot, and that's Penn State.
Oh, okay. So you got Penn State in there. Okay, good. Read the article wrong. So what is it? Look, Penn State has so many guys back. There's no question about that. When all these guys came back, it reminded me of the 86 team because 85 everybody came back. This seems like the same pattern with Penn State.
Yeah, and it also seems like the same pattern as what we've seen from the Big Ten the last 2 years. Ohio State had everybody return last year, Michigan the year before, and those two teams took advantage of the veteran leadership. You look at the top teams in the Big Ten, Ohio State lost 15 draft picks. Michigan lost 8. When you look at Penn State, they've got my number 1 rated offensive line, number 1 set of running backs. They've got their quarterback back, my number 3 defensive line, number 6 linebackers, number 4 DBs. They really are a complete team. They do have to play Ohio State on the road, but, they've played Ohio State tough, and I think the more veteran teams got a shot at breaking through this year.
Yeah, and with Ohio State, what does it mean to you that Julian Sayin takes over a quarterback, in some ways to some people, an unknown entity?
I think at the end of the year he'll be one of the top quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Just like the Ohio State quarterback always is, especially with the supporting cast that they have. But there is a learning curve, and you're talking about Drew Lar is a senior, been through the fire, had some great stats, and ready to go. Sayin is a guy who is a first-time starter, and so this is going to be his first time playing among the crowds that he's got to face.
I want to ask you about Indiana. Indiana last year was the perfect example of the team that got its college football playoff spot, played really well. Then at the end, they finally lost to Ohio State. Michigan in the second half played much better. Then Notre Dame knocked them out. Where are they this year with Curt Cignetti's team?
I think they're going to be good. I don't think they're going to match last year's record, but they are really good. And, when I went through the team position by position with Coach Cignetti, I like Mendoza at QB. I thought that Curtis Rourke, though, was outstanding last year. Maybe just a little back there, but you look at the running back core they had in Roman Hemby. I think they've got a better running back core than they had last year. The receiving core, they've got their top 2 guys back, plus they've got some outstanding recruits coming in. They could be even better than last year receiving core. You look at the offensive line, and it's another unit which looks upgraded over last year. Defensively, defensive line, linebacker, DBs, all look like they could potentially be upgraded. I think that Indiana's a team that might be a little more talented than last year's squad, but might not match the record. They have some tough games. They have to play Iowa on the road, Oregon on the road, Penn State on the road. So the schedule's a little bit tougher than it was last year.
How do you look at Michigan now? Because, look, Bryce Underwood's going to be the guy that takes over. They did lose a lot on defense. Doesn't mean they don't have a lot coming back on defense, but where do you view them in this mix?
Yeah, I think they're going to be one of the top defenses in the country still. You look up front, they've got Derek Moore at defensive end, Rashawn Benny at tackle, Barham at linebacker. They still have one of the top defenses in the country. Offensively, I do think they take a step back, though. The offensive line, I've got question marks about. They look okay maybe at the center, left guard, right guard, but the right guard and left tackle spots up in the air. They lose their top 2 receivers from last year. They lose their top 2 running backs from last year. So there are some questions with Michigan, but their schedule's pretty manageable. They do have to play USC on the road, but their other road games, Steve, they're playing Maryland, Northwestern, Michigan State. All those are winnable. They get the other games in the big house. They do have to play Nebraska, USC, and Oklahoma on the road. I think Michigan is a legitimate contender in the Big Ten, but I didn't put them up there in my top 2 or 3.
No, and up there, of course, will be Oregon. There's no Dylan Gabriel, so this opens the door for Dante Moore. Good returning running back. Wasn't the starter last year, Whittingham. I think is a good player. But they did lose Stewart, one of their wideouts for the season. How is the impact going to be for Oregon?
Yeah, and, they lost their top 2 receivers as well from last year, Tez Johnson and Holden. So the receiving core is one that's a little bit of a question mark coming in, but they still are very talented. You just look at the guys like DeCorian Moore, for example, the true freshman coming in, number 1 wide receiver out of high school. We saw last year what true freshman wide receivers can do, so I think he'll have a big year. I think when you look at the quarterback position, I don't think Dante Moore is going to match Dylan Gabriel's numbers. I mean, Gabriel hit 73% with 30 touchdowns and just 6 interceptions on the year. Dante Moore was okay at UCLA in his first year. He has had another year to absorb the system, but I don't think he'll match Gabriel's numbers. But Oregon's a good team, and you just look at the talent Dan Lanning is compiling there, and each of the units rank in my top 20, with the exception of quarterback, because Dante Moore's not as experienced as the rest. But they'll be up there, I think, contending in the Big Ten.
Look, they got Batchelor back at linebacker. Uyunglele is now back at defensive end. A lot of talent on that team. They are really good.
And they add in Dylan Thieneman from Purdue, who, of course, took the Big Ten by storm 2 years ago, and I think he's going to be a big upgrade for that secondary.
He's a terrific safety. I mean, you watch him play safety. Certain guys, you and I both know how to play. Dylan Thieneman knows how to play. All right. Arch Manning. How do you view Arch Manning? You go through 9 different data points on people and so forth. How do you view him?
I think he's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the country. I like the fact that, he was patient enough, stayed in the same system. This is actually his 3rd year now in the Texas system. I like that. We know he's got the arm to hit the deep ball, and we saw it when he played last year. He's also a very dangerous runner. He's not Peyton Manning running the football. He's Arch Manning, and we saw a couple of big touchdown runs last year. I think he's got a really good supporting cast around him. He's a very talented QB, and he's going to put up some stats. And Texas plays a very manageable schedule this year, so I think he's going to have a very good year this year. I don't know if he's going to be, the top pick in the draft or anything like that, but I do think he's right at the top.
No, I think he's a really good player. It's that the only question is he hasn't played a lot, which is interesting. I love I'm with you, though. I love the patience. He's waited for his moment. It's allowed him to mature. Now, when you look at the SEC, in total? It's going to be the Georgias, the Alabamas. Texas now is one of those teams. Who challenges Texas in the SEC?
Yeah, I think the most talented team in the SEC might be Texas, but I've got them coming in second, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But also watch Alabama. Kalen DeBoer's in his second year at Washington. They played in the national title game. I like the overall talent they have. They are breaking in a new quarterback, but Ty Simpson was impressive at the Manning Passing Academy, and I think he's going to do well with the supporting cast they have. Alabama's a threat, but I went with Georgia to win the SEC this year. And part of the reason, Steve, is schedule. You look at last year, Georgia played a murderous schedule. They had to play Alabama, Texas, and Mississippi all on the road, and they lost 2 of those 3 games. Yeah. Well, guess what? This year their toughest 3 games are the same 3 teams, but they get them all at home. And Georgia hasn't lost a home game in 5 years. So I think Georgia takes care of business between the hedges. You look at the road games this year, Tennessee, winnable, especially with their Nico being gone at the quarterback spot. Auburn, winnable on the road. Florida's in Jacksonville, Mississippi State, and Georgia Tech. So I think when you look at Georgia overall, I've got them favored in all 12 games this year, and they're my favorite to win the SEC. The fact they host Texas, to me, is the key to them winning it.
Yeah, that's one thing about Nico transferring. He transferred to UCLA. That means on October 4th, I have to say that name for 4 hours.
I don't envy you, Steve. Don't envy you.
There's going to be a lot of back goes Nico. It seems to roll off easier for whatever reason. But it's interesting you bring up the schedule part of it. People ask me all the time about, where I think certain people will finish. And the first thing I bring up is, who do you play? Who don't you play? And the people you do play, where do you play? See, and that's a part that I think a lot of people don't bring those 3 factors in as to what a team's record can be. Who do you play? Who don't you play? And the ones you play, where do you play them?
Yeah, and I think that had a big factor in Indiana last year with the success that they had.
No doubt.
They did play Michigan and they did play Ohio State, but other than that, did not play any of the top teams, really, in the Big Ten. So I think who you play, where you play, as you mentioned, Steve, that has a big impact. And as far as the Big Ten goes, probably the best schedule this year actually goes to Michigan. They do play Ohio State and they do play USC, but they don't play Oregon, they don't play Indiana, they don't play Illinois, they don't play Iowa. So they don't play numerous teams that are going to be contenders. So Michigan's actually got a really good schedule this year. The toughest schedule, how about Wisconsin? Oh, my goodness. They play Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Washington, Minnesota. They play one team that's at the very bottom, and that would be Maryland. But I think Wisconsin and I'm not even counting in Alabama in the non-conference schedule for them.
Let me ask you something. Have you done anything about the West Coast travel? And I don't mean Eastern teams going west, because they do that once, right? Penn State's doing it one every single year, and that's the way it is for most teams. But I'm talking about the West Coast teams repeatedly having to go east. Do you factor that in at all, especially late in the year?
Yeah, I think you have to factor it in. And so what I do, Steve, is I usually go through the schedule sometime in March after I've got my preliminary power ratings done, go through all the games, and then I do look at the scheduling advantage. Now, like Oregon, for example, this year, they do play Penn State on the road, but the next week they have a bye.
Right.
So I don't know if the travel is going to affect them that much. And they also play Iowa on the road this year, but the week prior to that they have a bye. So it sort of discounts the travel, I think, a little bit if you've got the bye factored in there. But if a team is playing, let's say, Oregon, they do play at Northwestern, travel back home, play Oregon State, then play Penn State. So I think that schedule helps out Penn State there, especially with the fact Penn State's off a bye.
Yeah, because last year, a year ago in the Big Ten schedule, 14 Eastern teams went west. Of those 14, 8 had bye weeks the next week, including Penn State after USC. And the other 6 played home games. So they've at least tried to make it workable for the Eastern teams, but it's more difficult for the Western teams coming east because they have to play more games coming east as opposed to one.
And the time change, Steve, because you're generally a lot of times you're playing first thing in the morning. If it's a 12 o'clock noon game, you're playing at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and Penn State played UCLA at noon last year here, which was 9 a.m. for them. Okay, so let's get to the ACC. Clemson's really good, especially that defensive front and Klubnik. Are they the class of the ACC going in?
Yes, they are. And, one thing I went through this year, Steve, and I was looking at continuity of teams. This is the transfer portal era. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I was talking to Coastal Carolina's coach, Tim Beck, and I said, well, Coach, last year you had 69 new players, but now it's year 3, more stability, so you should be in good shape. He's like, well, Phil, this year we got 68 new players. I'm like, wow, that's just so much transition. And you take a look at the teams that had great success last year. Army and Navy had tremendous success in the American Conference. They don't hit the transfer portal. Clemson, very little use of the transfer portal. Iowa State, very little use of the transfer portal. Even Ohio State, while they nitpick certain star players from the portal, the bulk of the team signed there as freshmen. And I think that's an advantage for Clemson, is that these are all players that have been signed with Clemson as freshmen, playing as freshmen. They did bring in some portal players like Will Held coming over from Purdue, Jeremiah Alexander coming in from Alabama on the defense. Offensively, they added Tristan Smith from Southeast Missouri State. But I think the biggest difference between Clemson last year and the previous 2 years was the receiving corps. 2 years ago, the receivers were banged up, injured. Last year, they were vastly improved. And now you got Cade Klubnik thrown to one of the best receiving corps in the country, an outstanding offensive line. As you touched on, Steve, the defense is great, and the schedule's there. And this is a veteran team. They've got 17 returning starters, and these guys were all recruited by Clemson, playing for Sweeney. I think I've got them favored in all 12 games. I think they go 12-0 this year.
Yeah, they very well could do that, no question. And not only that, but I look at what he's done, because Penn State is also judicious with the transfer portal.
Yes.
And I think that you're finding last year the Final Four teams were Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Ohio State. And all four had one thing in common to me. They had roster retention. And, and sometimes, you agree with that?
100%, Steve. And in fact, that popped up in, I talked to all the head coaches. So I talked about we're not able to always get 136 in. I think I got 126, 127 in this year. There's a couple we couldn't coordinate with because it was all in 1 month. But I threw that theory out to almost every single coach. I said, Coach, the theory I'm surmising here is that teams that have the best cohesiveness, little amount of change, it did the best. And the majority of them came back with, you might have a point there, Phil. And you look at last year, Army, Navy, Clemson, Iowa State, all were teams that had very little turnover and they added some key players. But yes, I love the retention factor, the cohesiveness, the team. It's more about the team, whereas the other ones that are bringing in 69, 70 players, it's more like you're bringing in a bunch of mercenaries.
Yeah, and not only that, but you don't know what your locker room looks like. You have no idea.
Yeah.
Right, what your locker room looks like.
Two teams in particular, Steve, I want to mention. West Virginia. Everybody's beat me up for picking West Virginia last in the Big 12. But when I talked to Coach Richrod and went over the roster with him, I'm like, okay, what about this guy? He's like, Phil, I haven't seen him yet. He's coming in over the summer. Phil, I haven't seen him yet. He's coming in over the summer. How the heck do you build a team when everybody's coming in after spring practice?
I know. The day they announced that he took the job, I think 39 guys went to the transfer portal, literally. So they didn't retain anybody. Speaking of the Big 12, who gets the nod there?
You don't want to be picked first, right? After last year.
Yeah, after last year, Arizona State was 15th? According to
they were picked last. But in fact, the Big 12 is not even doing a media poll this year because of that. All the teams that are picked at the top finish at the bottom. All the teams that finish at the bottom finish at the top. But the three teams I went with this year, Steve, I went with Baylor. I think Dave Aranda's doing a tremendous job there. They've got a veteran quarterback in Sawyer Robertson. They've got Aranda calling the defense, plenty of talent at the skill positions, and the schedule. Going back to what you had touched on, the schedule really sets up well. You look at their road games, Oklahoma State, Cincinnati, Arizona, all fall in the winnable category. Then Utah. Utah had so many close losses last year. They're off a rare losing year. But last year, their problem, I think, was at the quarterback position, and the fact that, Cam Rising, is he coming back? Is he not coming back? At the end of the year, they were down to a fifth-string quarterback who started the last 2 games. Yeah. Now they've got continuity at quarterback with Devin Dampier coming over from New Mexico, one of the best offensive lines in the country. They always have one of the best defenses. And last year they lost a lot of close games. I always do an article, Close Wins, Close Losses. Tells you a team is much better than its record, and that was Utah last year. I think they're going to be at the top. And then Iowa State, going back to what we talked about with the Armies, the Navies, the Penn State, the Clemsons. Iowa State's that type of team. Matt Campbell says, we retain a lot of players. Players don't come. Maybe they don't know we're here. We're located nowhere. Nobody's poaching their players from them. They've got the bulk of their talent coming back from what might have been the best team in the Big 12 last year. I think Iowa State, Matt Campbell got them to their first double-digit winning season in 133 years of football, and they could be even better this year.
That's one of the better developmental programs in the country right there, Iowa State. He does a great job of taking a guy from day one, and they're 1 or 2 stars up by the time he's done. So. Absolutely.
And he did a great job at Toledo as well. But
no
the
doubt.
job he's done to Iowa State's phenomenal.
Phil, always a pleasure. I hope this is the first of many talks this season.
It should be, Steve. I always enjoy talking, and I always learn something when I talk to you. So it's great to hear your voice again, and I really appreciate it. Can't wait for the football season. How do you feel about Penn State this year?
One of the keys after seeing a 16-game season last year, which I did, you have to be a deep team, right? And to me, that's the big part with Penn State. I feel like across the board, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, they're a deep team. If you're a deeper team, you can handle a schedule.
Love it. I agree with you 100% there, Steve. And since I picked them first in the magazine, I'll be a Penn State fan this year. Everybody asks me who's my favorite team. I always say whoever I pick higher than everybody else.
Good. Welcome aboard. Great to have you. Phil, thank you so much, and we'll talk here in a few more weeks.
All right, sounds good, Steve. Looking forward to it, buddy.
You bet. The great Phil Steele. His magazine is out there now. Okay, I mean, and this is just the great time to get to it because his research is exhaustive and constant. Half hour brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf. Here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
When you wanna grow your list size, pop up like it's hot, pop up like it's hot, pop up like it's hot. And when you gotta boost your revenue, pop up like it's hot, hey, pop up like it's hot, pop up like it's hot. Pick your favorite template, you can tailor to your brand. They're MailChimp-erific, you're gonna be a fan. MailChimp your marketing with our new customizable pop-ups.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.
Celebrate your freedom from high prices this long holiday weekend at Sunbury Motors with deals hotter than a firecracker. Hurry in to Sunbury Motors Ford and choose from 10 pre-owned Explorers priced as low as $17,997. Or pick from 12 pre-owned F-150s, America's best-selling truck, starting at just $18,997. At Sunbury Motors Hyundai, save up to $2,300 on the versatile pre-owned Hyundai Santa Cruz and up to $2,000 on used Hyundai Santa Fe's that come with plenty of room for the whole family. And Sunbury Motors Kia, save up to $2,600 on the used, sleek, and comfortable Kia Sorentos and up to $2,000 on a pre-owned, affordable, and smooth-riding Kia Telluride. And that's just a small example. Celebrate your freedom from high prices at Sunbury Motors Ford and Sunbury Motors Hyundai in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and the Sunbury Motors Kia on the Strip in Hummels Wharf. And you can always check out their entire pre-owned inventory at sunburymotors.com.
Bringing you an in-depth in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Brewers Outlet, Sunbury Motor Company, and Purdy Insurance. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Half hour brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motorcycle, RV, yes, even Medicare. They handle it all at Purdy Insurance. When I needed something insurance-wise, I called Purdy. Steve Engel took care of everything I needed. Couldn't have worked out any better. They'll do the same for you. Customer service means everything to them at Purdy Insurance. Market Street in Sunbury, go to purdyinsurance.com. All right, so Beaver Stadium. The construction is continuing on the west side, as you would expect. They should be able to get the platforms up by the end of the month, which means they can start putting the seats up that go up there. And so that's where it is right now. You can see the ramping that has been put up. Because you're going to have to obviously have the ability to get to the seats. So that's what the ramping part is about, and they're taking care of that right now to go with the platforms. Now, the steel is there, but the platforms over the steel that's not up yet. What I have found interesting is that I've actually had a couple of people ask me about the safety of it. Like, safety of it. I was kind of taken aback by that question. Like, really? Because, you're talking about huge steel girders and then platforms on top of it, then the seats on top of the platforms. And one thing that is interesting about this is something that I've already mentioned this before, but James Franklin and I were in the stadium one day, and he says, Steve, can you believe how far out the footprint goes? I said, no. I mean, two of us were taken aback by how far out it went. But I hadn't really considered, and I tell everybody, I said, well, you got to remember, I'll be sitting on that side too. Was that I haven't even thought about it. To be honest with you, it's probably going to be in better shape than maybe it was before.
When you say you guys are surprised about how far out it comes, is that just the construction, or will the stadium be that far out as well?
No, it's going to be that far out because it's the steel that comes out. We're talking about how far the footprint is, not for the construction area, the footprint and how far out it goes for the steel.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, it's not out into the parking lot. No, but it's definitely further out than it was before. And they're going to build, everything else around this as they go. Because look, the construction's going to continue once this part is done. And remember this too, is that. When you look at the people who are doing it, this part's being done by the waste management people. And they are incredibly skilled and experts at doing temporary seating. They did it at Northwestern. They do it in Scottsdale every year. This group is really good at what they do. And the weather, by the way, has been tremendous in allowing them to do what they're doing right now. The weather's been terrific. So that, after having a lousy spring, the last couple of weeks, no, good.
I'm sure it's been a touch warmer than some of those guys like.
Oh, yeah, but you expect that.
Yeah.
But you expect that. It is, I mean, right now it feels like July. There's nothing unusual about the July weather so far. Nothing. I mean, I did the game at Williamsport the other day. What was it? I don't know. 88 degrees on the 4th of July when I was there. So what? It felt like the 4th of July. It's no big deal.
Which is much better than 65 on Memorial Day. So.
Oh, yeah, which is brutal, you know, and all the rain we had, which was just bad. I mean, it's good that we've had rain. It's good that we have rain, but not the constant every day that we had. It felt like in the spring. It was ridiculous. Now, yeah, we'll get a thunderstorm here and a thunderstorm there, and the temperature is between 82 and 88 right now. It's July. It feels like it. This is fine. Right? So, yeah. You know, that's, you know, and I think that's allowed them to accelerate whatever process they have because the weather's been cooperative for them. But you see the huge steel beams that they have in this thing. I don't know why anybody would question it. I think it's going to be, as I tell everybody, I said, excuse me, I'm going to be sitting over there. I have no thoughts about it at all.
Maybe that's their concern. Maybe they're worried somebody's going to sabotage your spot.
Well, that would just be a personal thing.
True.
So, yeah, I hate that guy. I can't stand him. Yeah, that's a distinct possibility. No, put him on the other side. See, that's the part people don't realize, like part of the construction. It's not just that side, but the luxury suites on the east side, they're converting a section of those into what's going to be a press area. Because that's where the media is going to be from now on. And to be honest with you, unless there's an event over there, I won't get a chance to see it until there's an event, because on game day, I'm not going to go over there. And that's the way it's going to be from now on. We're going to be on separate sides from now on from them. And I think the public address guys are staying over there, too. I think the only ones that will be on the west side, even when everything is complete in 2 years, will just be the broadcasters. And I'm talking about the people broadcasting the game, TV, radio. Anybody covering the game, I think they're all going to be on the east side.
I feel like that kind of stinks just for the fact that's a good way to pick up on some gossip before the game, is listen to some of the writers and the national writers talk.
Maybe on a national point of view, but not about.
Well, I know not about Penn State.
Not for me for Penn State.
No.
I mean, it's, and if I want to know something like, say, for example. Well, I mean, Penn State's playing at Ohio State this year. What I want to know about Ohio State, I'll just ask Paul Keels. You know, they'll tell me what's going on. Hey.
Problem solved.
Yeah. No offense. I never really, with all due respect, because I get to go all the time, I've never picked up anything from. Now, it doesn't mean they're not great people to talk to. They're great people to talk to, but they haven't either said anything I don't already know, or there are things I know that they don't know going into the game. Only because I'm there, you know, the access to it. That's the only reason. Not because I'm smarter. Believe me, I'm not smarter. But because of the access I've been able to be fortunate to have, yeah, I do see a lot more stuff. A lot more. Yeah.
I was going to say they're only allowed to actually watch one practice a week, right?
Yeah, they get
during the season.
They get about 10 to 15 minutes a week.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, And I will say this, that the last couple of years, there have been the people covering it are, I think, have now figured out ways to really cover it and get as much in as they can in the 15 minutes. I thought when Drew Aller was a freshman, they were so enamored with the possibility that Drew could be the starting quarterback from week to week, which he never was, that they'd all flock over there to get a look as to what was going on. And they missed a few things. I mean, when Devin Ford left after the fourth game, all of a sudden the fifth game, he's not back returning kicks. I was like, well, what the heck happened? Well, he wasn't out there Wednesday either. Joey Porter Jr. had his appendectomy. Remember that?
Yes.
Same thing. They didn't realize, there were a whole bunch of people who didn't realize he wasn't playing till Saturday because they were all going over toward Drew. And Drew's status never changed the entire season. And to be frank with you, I don't need his status. I don't really need his status to change one iota this season either. Okay? I don't need to see that happen. Okay, I don't need Drew's status to change at all this season on any week.
There's a pile of people currently nodding along with you.
Yeah, like I don't need to say. Now when something happens, I feel like the last two seasons, the media that get in for that 10 to 15 minutes are far more spread out and looking at the entire team compared to where they were 3 years ago.
I do wonder if part of that is nothing sells like a quarterback controversy, and
right,
there was a lot of fans invested in Drew in that freshman season.
Yeah, but there was no controversy on the team. Everybody around the team knew who the starting quarterback was, like everybody. I will say this: Drew from the spring of 2023, all right? So our spring of 2022. Spring of 2022, that was Drew's freshman year, right? Where I thought he was very much up and down to the opening day of training camp that year. Wow. The improvement was dramatic. It really was. And that's I was really, that's what I said to Jack. I said, you know what? I said, this guy's going to be a pretty good player for them. I said, to make that much improvement in X amount of months, because in the spring, he was very much up and down. All right? I think Drew would be the first one to tell you, but there was no pressure on him to play. Then immediately James installed him as the number 2 guy. Good. And that allowed him to develop as the 2, and he played in 9 games that year. But there was never any thought of starting him. In fact, Sean got hurt that year. And when Sean got hurt, they figured out pretty fast that he was going to be able to play the next game because there was a bye week. So
I do remember that because they may have known that Sean was playing after the bye week, but that was pretty touch and go for the masses there for a while that week.
Oh, sure. No question. Yeah. No question. You are absolutely right about that. And that's what, and I understand that completely. Because people weren't sure, and he'd been banged up and the whole deal. And he was able to get out there and play, and and Drew did not get the start in that game. But But that was that year was interesting because there was so many. Look, I mean, obviously he's a 5-star quarterback, and I completely get it. But once the season started, it was apparent to every single person around the program from the day one of training camp on who the number one quarterback was. Right? And, okay, I understand that. That people were like, hey, wait a minute. And they went on and they won the Rose Bowl that year.
I think at that point, Sean was almost like an NFL starting quarterback. He had been there, been around so long, and that was, Drew was the shiny new toy, and there's nobody more popular than the backup quarterback sometimes.
Oh, and the shiny new toy part is exactly right. I mean, that is exactly right. But I think that season was important to Drew to get him to this season. I think that season was important to Drew because he was able to sit back, learn without the pressure of being the guy, but the pressure of being the backup. When he stepped in against Purdue, he showed us, like, okay. Because remember, Sean couldn't start the second half of the opening game. And the opening series went to Drew. And Drew played very, very well. You're like, okay, all right. They got a guy here. Right? And then Sean came back in the game. Then he, of course, led the game-winning drive at the end with the touchdown pass to Kevon Lee, and they won it 35-31. But he was able to not just learn the system, because obviously the system changed, when Andy Koltonicki eventually got in there. But he was able to learn the system. He was able to learn from Sean. And one of the elements that he learned from Sean was how to watch video. What are you watching for? Why are you watching it? Okay, what do you take out of it? What do you talk to receivers and running backs and the offensive line about based on what you see on video? How do you communicate with your coaches about video? Sean taught Drew a lot of that, which in turn he's passed along to the younger players. I mean, there's just so many. You always try to take care of the little things because the big things take care of themselves. If you go from A to Z and skip B through Y, okay, Z is not going to be as successful if you go from A to Z. But Z will be extremely successful if you take care of steps B through Y to then get to Z.
That just reminds me of that book earlier this year that said that nobody had taught Caleb Williams how to watch film until he got to the NFL.
That's right. That's exactly right. Because the older quarterback there was the one that plays for the Saints now with the South Carolina. Spencer Rattler. Yeah. And there really wasn't anybody teaching him how to do that. And it sounds like Lincoln Riley's not that kind of guy. And then he gets to the NFL, and he had to learn how to do all that. Well, here at Penn State, they were already doing that, and Sean was doing that because Sean got it from Trace McSorley, right? And you know what I mean? Like, you start getting, like, these – when you have continuity in a developmental program, this goes back to what Phil Steele and I were talking about. What were we talking about? We're talking about the successful teams that have – a judicious use of the transfer portal, and they don't just turn the entire roster over. Okay? And see, that when you have that, you have Zakee Wheatley talking to Day-Day Lane. Okay? When you have that, you have Elliott Washington talking to Kenny Wosley. When you have that, you have Dominic DeLuca talking to Keon Wiley. When you have that, you have Zane Duran talking to Xavier Gilliam. See what I mean? And they're passing it down. When they get secure in their position, right, where, yeah, you have to fight for your position all the time, but when you get secure in your position, you pass along your knowledge to other people. And I see this at practice all the time where they're pulling guys. I'm talking about players pulling guys, say, no. You got to handle the sideline this way when you're a corner. You've got to put yourself in this position. They want you in this spot. They want you turning him toward the sideline. If they put you in this spot, they want you turning him toward the middle. Things like that I can hear them talking about all the time, player to player, not coach to player, player to player, getting advice from peers who are respected by the younger players. And you get that when there's continuity in the program. All right. Back with more in a moment. Brought to you by Purdy Insurance here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
Cracked windshield? Yeah, that's just the start of it. At Elite Auto Glass Plus on Route 11 between Northumberland and Danville, it's the plus that sets them apart. Plus, expert glass service for cars, trucks, even tractor trailers, RVs, and heavy equipment. Plus, high-tech sensor recalibration to OEM perfection. Plus, experience and technical expertise. Plus, working with your insurance. Plus, exceptional customer satisfaction. Visit EliteAutoglassPlusPA.com and experience the elite difference. It's clearly the right choice.